Have you ever wondered why some people seem to possess an inexplicable peace, a wisdom beyond their years, and a confidence that remains unshaken even by life's worst storms? While most of us struggle to find true purpose and meaning, there's a story in the Bible that reveals the secret to an extraordinary life. And the protagonist isn't who you imagine. It wasn't a powerful king, a famous prophet, or an invincible warrior. It was an ordinary family man who discovered something so revolutionary that he literally disappeared from the earth without dying. Sounds impossible. Enoch's life proves it isn't. Here's the truth no one tells you. You don't have to be perfect, super religious, or have a problem-free life to experience radical transformation. Enoch lived in a time without a Bible, an organized church, spiritual YouTube, or self-help books. Yet he developed a walk with God so intense that it literally changed the course of history. What if I told you that his secret is available to you too, right here, right now? That you can start building a faith today that not only gives you inner peace, but can completely transform your destiny. The story you're about to learn will challenge everything you think about spirituality, life purpose, and your relationship with God. Prepare to discover how an ordinary man achieved the impossible, and how you can follow in his footsteps. In just a few minutes, you'll understand why Enoch is considered one of the most fascinating characters in the Bible, and how the communion he developed can be the difference you're looking for to escape spiritual mediocrity once and for all. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to meet someone who lived so extraordinary a life that they simply disappeared from earth without experiencing death? Just imagine, the person was there living their normal life and suddenly, bye-bye, they went straight to heaven. Sounds crazy, right? But this person really existed, and his name was Enoch. His story is one of the most fascinating and mysterious in the entire Bible, and when you understand it properly, it completely changes your perspective on what it means to have a purpose in life. Seriously, it's no exaggeration. This man's life will make you rethink a lot of things. Look how interesting. While everyone in his time was born, grew up, had children, and died following the normal path of life, Enoch broke that mold in a spectacular way. His walk with God was so special that the Creator himself decided to do something different with him. It's as if God looked at him and said, "This one deserves VIP treatment." And we're not talking about a perfect guy or an unattainable saint. He was an ordinary person who faced hardships like the rest of us. The difference was in his faith and how he maintained this connection with the divine. What impresses me most about Enoch's story is that he was just like us, you know. He had a family, bills to pay, responsibilities. He lived in a world full of distractions and problems, just like ours. But even so, he managed to maintain such a strong communion with God that his life has become an example to this day. It's like that friend who, even in the midst of a busy life, always finds time to truly talk to you. Only in his case, that conversation was with the Creator of the universe, and look what an incredible transformation this brought to his life. The coolest thing about Enoch is that he shows us that it's possible to live an extraordinary life as an ordinary person. You don't need to have superpowers or be a genius. You just need to be consistent in your relationship with God. Feel it's like learning to play the guitar. It's difficult at first, but with daily practice, eventually you'll be playing as if it were natural. His walk with God was like this, a constant practice that became increasingly natural until it reached a point where it was impossible to separate one from the other. When you read about Enoch, you realize he wasn't just another name lost in biblical genealogy. The man truly made a difference. While everyone else was chasing money, power, or recognition, something that hasn't changed much to this day, right? He chose to invest in his relationship with God. Imagine if we applied this mindset today. Instead of just chasing success and social media likes, what if we prioritized developing a faith that truly connected us to our greater purpose? The change would be radical. The most impressive thing is that Enoch's story doesn't have a tragic ending because he simply didn't die. That's jaw-dropping. It makes us think about how real and profound our communion with God can be. I'm not talking about going to church every Sunday and that's it, although that's important too, but about having a living experience that literally changes the way you see and live life. It's like having a best friend who's always by your side, except that friend happened to create the entire universe. Enoch's life proves that when you truly walk with God, it's not just your perspective that changes, you begin to change from within. It's a transformation that goes far beyond following religious rules or performing rituals. It's about connecting with something much greater than yourself, something eternal and powerful. And the best part is that this isn't just Enoch's privilege. It's available to anyone who wants to pursue this same journey. Now, to fully understand how Enoch managed to live such a special life, we need to take a look at how he fit into human history. That is, where he came from, who his parents were, what his position in the family was because believe me, these details of his genealogy reveal surprising things that make his story even more interesting. It's as if every little bit of his life was planned to teach us something important about how to find our true purpose. Did you know that in the Bible, when someone appears as the seventh in a lineage, it usually means they are very special? Well, that's exactly what happened with Enoch. He was the seventh patriarch after Adam, and that's no coincidence. In biblical culture, the number 7 has always represented perfection and divine completeness. It's as if God placed Enoch in this strategic position to show that he would be different from all the others. When you understand this genealogical journey, you realize that from the beginning something unique was prepared for his life. Enoch's lineage is fascinating when you stop and analyze it. Adam, Seth, Enosh, Canaan, Mahalaleel, Jared, and then Enoch. Each name on this list has profound meaning, but when we get to Enoch, it's as if the whole story takes on a special purpose. His father, Jared, lived 962 years. Just imagine how many stories this man must have to tell. But the interesting thing is that even though he came from a long-lived family, Enoch chose to live his life in a completely different way. He wasn't content to simply follow family tradition. He sought his own faith and his own relationship with God. What strikes me most about Enoch's genealogy is that he became the father of Methuselah, who ended up being the longest-lived man in history, 969 years. Imagine the responsibility of raising a son knowing he would live to be almost 1,000 years old. But here's an interesting thought. Even though he was the father of someone who broke the longevity record, Enoch only lived 365 years. It seems short compared to others, right? But the quality of his communion with God was so intense that it made up for any lack in years. It's like that song that lasts only 3 minutes, but marks your entire life. When you look at biblical genealogy, the formula is usually always the same. So-and-so lived so many years, begot so-and-so, and then lived so many more years and died. But when it comes to Enoch, things change. The Bible breaks the pattern and says something different about him. This shows that his personal transformation was so remarkable that even the biblical writers felt the need to highlight his life in a special way. It's like a playlist of similar songs, and suddenly a completely different track appears and captures your attention. Enoch's position in the genealogy also teaches us something very practical. No matter where you come from or what your family history is, you can choose to live differently. He had ancestors and descendants, meaning he was in the middle of the lineage, neither the first nor the last. Even so, he decided that his walk with God would be unique. It's like being in a family where everyone follows the same profession, but you decide to forge a completely new path. His faith wasn't automatically inherited. It was a personal and conscious choice. Another interesting detail is that Enoch fathered Methuselah at age 65, and after that, he lived another 300 years walking with God. Coincidence? I don't think so. It's often when we become responsible for others, whether children, employees, or anyone who depends on us, that our faith truly matures. It's as if fatherhood had awakened in him a greater awareness of the purpose of his existence. Having a child may have been the catalyst that led him to seek an even deeper communion with the Creator. The beauty of Enoch's genealogy is that it shows us that extraordinary people can emerge from anywhere in the family line. You don't have to be the firstborn or the special youngest. You can be the middle and still make all the difference. Enoch proves that regardless of your position in the family, society, or any hierarchy, what really matters is how you choose to relate to God. Your personal transformation can influence entire generations, as happened with him, who has become an example to this day. But do you know what's even more impressive? Understanding that Enoch wasn't born walking with God since he was a baby. The Bible suggests that this special journey began after he became a father. This means he experienced a before and an after, a real and tangible transformation in his life. And if it happened to him at 65, imagine what could happen to you no matter how old you are now. God's timing doesn't follow our clock, and it's never too late to begin a new journey of faith and purpose. You know that person everyone knows in town? The one whose name everyone says, "Oh, so-and-so, I know him, incredible person." Enoch was like that in his time. Over 365 years, he built a reputation that spanned millennia. Interestingly, he wasn't famous for being rich, powerful, or performing great deeds. He was simply known for living a different life. His faith was so genuine that people sensed something special about him just by being around. It was like having a friend who always leaves you feeling lighter after a conversation. Enoch's life was surprisingly ordinary in many ways. He woke up early, took care of his chores, raised his children, worked to support his family, but there was one difference that changed everything. He had learned to transform everyday moments into encounters with the divine. While he planted, he talked to God. While he walked, he reflected on life. His spiritual journey didn't happen only in sacred moments, but was integrated into every small action of the day. It's like seasoning food. A little bit in each ingredient makes all the difference in the final flavor. One thing that strikes me about Enoch is that he must have been a present and loving father. Just imagine raising Methuselah, who lived 969 years, and on top of that, being such a strong example that his son became a model for longevity. This doesn't happen by chance. Enoch probably knew how to balance authority with affection, discipline with understanding. His communion with God certainly influenced the way he raised and related to his family. He's the kind of father you remember fondly for your entire life and want to be like when you grow up. What must have been most incredible about Enoch's life is that he lived in a very difficult time. He didn't have the facilities we have today. No technology, no modern medicine, no infrastructure we know. Life was hard, the work was heavy, and yet he found a way to maintain his faith firm and constant. He's like those people who manage to be happy, regardless of external circumstances. His inner transformation was so solid that not even difficulties could shake his peace and trust in God. Another striking characteristic of Enoch's life was his ability to positively influence those around him. He wasn't a pulpit preacher or one who gave long religious speeches. His testimony was his very life. People saw how he treated his family, how he resolved conflicts, how he faced problems, and thought, "I want to have that same peace he has." His walk with God was so natural and engaging that it aroused curiosity and admiration. It's like having a neighbor everyone would want to be friends with. Enoch must also have been a very wise and counselor. 300 years of experience walking with God certainly gave him a unique perspective on life. When someone was going through a crisis or needed to make an important decision, they probably sought him out. Not because he had all the answers ready, but because his communion with the divine gave him insights that others couldn't see. It's like having a mentor who not only teaches you techniques, but also helps you understand the greater purpose behind each situation. The most impressive thing about Enoch's life is that he proved it's possible to live an extraordinary life without being extraordinary. He didn't have superpowers, he wasn't perfect. He didn't live in a bubble protected from life's problems. He was an ordinary person who made an unusual choice. He decided that his relationship with God would be his #1 priority in everything. This simple decision generated a transformation so profound that it has echoed through the centuries. It's like a small seed that, planted in the right place and cared for with love, can become a giant tree. Enoch's life leaves us with a very interesting question. If he managed to develop such an intimate relationship with God, living in a time without organized spiritual resources, what does that really mean? How does one build such solid faith based solely on sincere seeking and a willing heart? The answer may be simpler than we imagine, but at the same time deeper than we can fully comprehend. It's as if there's a secret hidden in the simplicity of walking with God that few truly discover. What exactly does walking with God mean? The Bible uses this expression to describe Enoch, but let's face it, it's not something we see every day, right? It's not like walking in the park with a friend where you chat about football or neighborhood gossip. When we talk about walking with God, we're talking about something much deeper and more mysterious. It's as if there's an invisible dimension to life that most people don't perceive, but that's always there, available for those who want to discover it. Enoch's walk was in this dimension, and it made all the difference in his way of life. Think of a friendship you have with someone super close, that person you don't have to pretend to be different, who knows your flaws and still loves you. Now multiply that by 1,000, and you get an idea of what Enoch's communion with God was like. It wasn't a formal relationship, full of rules and protocols. It was natural, spontaneous, like breathing. He had discovered that God isn't the harsh judge many people imagine, but someone who truly cares about every detail of our lives. This genuine faith completely transformed the way he saw and lived each moment. Walking with God also means having an internal compass that always points in the right direction. You know when you're unsure about a decision and don't know which path to take. Enoch had an advantage. He consulted directly with the source. He didn't need to guess or follow his own intuition. His spiritual transformation gave him access to wisdom that came from above. It's like having a premium GPS in life. You can still choose alternative routes, but you always know the best way to get where you want to go. This must have given him enormous peace and security. Another characteristic of those who walk with God is that they develop the same values and priorities as he does. It's the same when you spend a lot of time with someone you admire. Little by little, you absorb some of that person's characteristics. Enoch spent so much time in God's presence that he began to think and act like God. His daily walk shaped his character, his reactions, his dreams, and his goals. It wasn't forced imitation, but a natural influence that happens when you truly love and respect someone. The most amazing thing about walking with God is that there's no detailed instruction manual for it. Each person develops their own way of connecting with the divine. Enoch found his way, which was probably different from anyone else's at the time. Some like to pray on their knees, others prefer to converse with God while walking. Some connect through music, others through contemplation of nature. What's important isn't the form, but the sincerity of faith and the genuine desire for this communion. It's like dancing. Each person has their own rhythm, but the important thing is to surrender to the music. Walking with God also means having the courage to be different when necessary. Enoch certainly faced situations where everyone around him was doing something wrong, but he chose to follow his conscience and the values he had learned on his spiritual journey. It probably wasn't easy at times, because going against the grain never is. But he had something that gave him strength, the certainty that he wasn't alone. His inner transformation gave him such a strong conviction that he could stand firm even when he was outnumbered. It's like having a best friend who always supports you, even when everyone else is on the other side. The coolest thing about walking with God is that there's no retirement or vacation from this journey. It's not something you do only on Sundays or in times of crisis. It becomes a lifestyle, a way of seeing and experiencing reality. Enoch took this so seriously that he maintained this constant communion for 300 years. Imagine the consistency required. It's like maintaining a healthy diet for decades. It requires discipline, but the results appear and make all the difference. His faith wasn't something he turned on at specific moments, but something that was always present. And here comes the most interesting point. Walking with God changes not only how you live, but also how you die, or in Enoch's case, how you don't die. His journey was so intense and genuine that it literally transcended the normal limitations of human existence. This makes us reflect on the true purpose of this spiritual journey. It's not just about being a better person or having a happier life, although that also happens, but about discovering possibilities we never imagined existed. It's as if the door to a whole new dimension of reality is opened when you truly learn to walk with God. Enoch's story is like that movie you watch and think about for days. It's not just entertainment, it's something that moves you deeply and makes you rethink your entire life. When we analyze the spiritual significance of his life, we realize he wasn't just another cool biblical character to meet. He represents a real possibility that exists for any of us, the chance to live a life that goes far beyond the ordinary. His faith wasn't theoretical or superficial, but something so genuine and profound that it literally changed his destiny. It's like discovering a secret floor in the building where you've always lived. Enoch's example shatters many of the excuses we often give for not pursuing a deeper spiritual life. He didn't have luxurious temples. He didn't attend theological seminaries. He didn't have access to thousands of spiritual self-help books. He lived in a much simpler time than ours, without all the technology and modern conveniences. Even so, he managed to develop a communion with God that remains a reference to this day. This shows us that a relationship with the divine doesn't depend on external resources, but on the sincere disposition of the heart. It's like learning to play an instrument. You can have the best equipment in the world, but without passion and dedication, you won't get far. Enoch's life also teaches us that holiness isn't synonymous with isolation or religious fanaticism. He was a normal man, married, a family man, integrated into the society of his time. He didn't live in a cave meditating 24 hours a day or flagellating himself to purify his soul. His spiritual journey took place amidst real life, with all its responsibilities and challenges. He proved that it's possible to be deeply connected to God and at the same time completely present in practical life. It's like being a high-performance athlete who manages to maintain perfect physical shape despite having work, family, and other responsibilities. One of the most impressive aspects of Enoch's spiritual significance is that he demonstrates the power of gradual transformation. It wasn't an overnight change. It took 300 years of consistent walking that resulted in an extraordinary life. This gives us hope because it shows that we don't have to be perfect from the start. We can start where we are with our limitations and gradually evolve. It's like building a house. You don't have to finish everything in one day, but if you consistently lay a few bricks, eventually you'll have a solid and beautiful structure. Enoch's story also reveals something fascinating about the purpose of human life. He wasn't content to simply exist, work, have children, and die like everyone else. He sought something greater, a connection with the transcendent that gave profound meaning to everything he did. His faith wasn't a weekend hobby, but the center that organized his entire existence. It's like the difference between someone who works just for money and someone who has found their true calling. The motivation and results are completely different. He discovered that we were created for much more than just survival. Spiritually speaking, Enoch represents proof that intimacy with God is not the privilege of a select few. Anyone can develop this deep communion as long as they are willing to prioritize this relationship. He wasn't a spiritual superhero or someone with special supernatural gifts. He was an ordinary human being who made an unusual choice. He decided that knowing and loving God would be the most important thing in his life. This simple decision sparked a transformation so radical that it has echoed through the millennia. It's like planting a small seed that grows into a giant tree. The deepest spiritual meaning of Enoch's life is perhaps that he shows us a possible model for how to live. At a time when everyone seems lost, chasing things that don't truly satisfy, he offers a different example. He shows that it's possible to find peace, purpose, and true fulfillment through a sincere walk with the Creator. We're not talking about empty religiosity or fanaticism, but about an authentic spirituality that transforms from within and is reflected externally. It's like having a spring of clean water in the middle of the desert. It not only quenches your thirst, but can also quench the thirst of others. Finally, Enoch reminds us that our existence can transcend the limits we consider normal. He literally went beyond death, showing that there are dimensions of reality we don't yet fully understand. His faith and communion with God were so intense that they opened up extraordinary possibilities. This doesn't mean we'll all share his fate, but it suggests that when we truly connect with the divine, incredible things can happen. It's like discovering that the world is much larger and more mysterious than you imagined, and that you have the potential to explore territories you never knew existed. Just imagine the scene. Enoch was there, living his normal life when suddenly he disappeared. He didn't die of illness, he wasn't in an accident, he wasn't attacked by wild animals. He simply disappeared from the earth because God took him. The Bible is quite straightforward about this. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. It's one of the most mysterious and intriguing phrases in all of Scripture. It must have been surreal for those who knew him. People must have searched for days, unable to understand what had happened. His walk with God was so special that it resulted in an ending completely outside the normal course of human life. The most impressive thing about Enoch's ascension is that it happened naturally, as a logical consequence of the faith he had developed over the years. It wasn't a forced or artificial event. It was as if his communion with God had reached a point where the separation between them no longer made sense. It's like those couples who become so close after decades together that they seem like one person. Enoch's spiritual transformation was so complete that he was more at home in God's presence than on earth. It was a smooth transition to where he truly belonged. The uniqueness of Enoch's ascension becomes even more evident when you realize that, until that moment, this had never happened to anyone. All the other patriarchs, no matter how long-lived and important, had the same ending, and he died. But Enoch's was different. His story breaks the mold and introduces a completely new possibility into the human experience. It's as if God looked at him and thought, this one deserves something special. His extraordinary faith created an extraordinary destiny, showing that our spiritual journey can lead to places we never imagined. One thing that really strikes me is how Enoch's ascension must have profoundly impacted his family and community. Imagine Methuselah, his son, trying to explain to his grandchildren where their grandfather ended up. Look, everyone, Grandpa didn't die. He kind of went to heaven while still alive. It must have been hard to believe, but at the same time, it must have greatly strengthened the faith of those who lived with him. They had seen firsthand how Enoch lived, knew of his special communion with God, so perhaps they weren't all that surprised. It was almost expected that something exceptional would happen to someone so exceptional. The mystery of the ascension also makes us reflect on the limits of human existence. For centuries, humanity accepted death as inevitable and final. But Enoch showed that there are exceptions, that there are possibilities beyond what we consider normal. His transformation was so profound that it transcended ordinary physical limitations. It's as if he had discovered a secret code of life that most people don't even imagine exists. This doesn't diminish the importance of earthly life, but it expands our vision of what is possible when we truly connect with divine purpose. The way Enoch was taken also reveals much about God's character. There was no drama, suffering, or painful separation. It was an act of pure love, like a loving father calling his child home at the right time. God wasn't punishing or testing Enoch. He was rewarding a life of genuine faith and authentic relationship. It's like when you have a friend so dear that you want to keep them close. The communion between them had become so precious that God decided to make it permanent and complete. What an incredible statement about the value of a life lived in intimacy with the Creator. Enoch's ascension also serves as a kind of preview or trailer of what God has in store for humanity. It suggests that death isn't necessarily the end of the story, that there are dimensions of reality that go far beyond what we can see and touch. We're not talking about fantasy or wishful thinking, but a real possibility demonstrated in the life of a real person. His extraordinary journey resulted in an extraordinary destiny, indicating that our spiritual journey can unfold in ways we can't even fully imagine. What strikes me most about Enoch's ascension is that it happened without fanfare or publicity. There were no trumpets blowing, no angels appearing, no signs in the sky. It was an intimate and personal experience between him and God, the fruit of a faith built day after day for 300 years. This teaches us that the most significant moments in spiritual life often happen away from the spotlight, in the simplicity of a sincere relationship with the divine. True transformation doesn't need an audience or public recognition. It happens in the heart and manifests itself in ways that only God can perfectly orchestrate. The story of Enoch isn't just an interesting biblical anecdote to share in conversation circles. It's a practical guide to living a truly worthwhile life. If you're a Christian and want to escape spiritual lukewarmness, Enoch shows you the way. First step, stop treating your relationship with God as a weekend hobby. Just as he integrated his faith into every moment of his day, you can start talking to God while driving to work, giving thanks for the little things during lunch, or asking for wisdom before an important meeting. It's transformation in practice, not just in theory. A fundamental lesson we learn from Enoch is that consistency is more important than sporadic intensity. Many people try to have super intense spiritual experiences once a month and then spend the rest of their time on autopilot. Enoch did the opposite. He maintained a steady and balanced journey for 300 years. This means you don't need to keep 12-hour vigils or radical fasts to impress God. It's better to set aside 15 minutes every day for a sincere conversation with Him than to spend hours praying only when you're desperate. Genuine communion is built daily, like any healthy relationship. Enoch also teaches us that authentic spirituality doesn't disconnect you from reality. On the contrary, it makes you more present and effective in your practical life. He raised children, worked, had social responsibilities, and still kept his faith first. This means you don't have to abandon your career, your hobbies, or your family to be a spiritual person. In fact, when you truly walk with God, you become a better father, a more upright professional, and a more trustworthy friend. Divine purpose doesn't compete with normal life. It enhances it and gives meaning to everything. Another practical application of Enoch's life concerns patience with the process of spiritual growth. He didn't become a saint overnight. It took decades of gradual progress to reach that level of intimacy with God. This should take the pressure off you, who sometimes feel frustrated about not being spiritual enough. If you started your journey with God yesterday, don't compare yourself to someone who's been at it for 20 years. The important thing is to take one step at a time with sincerity and consistency. Real transformation takes time, but when it happens, it's for real and no one can reverse it. Enoch also shows us that it's possible to maintain firm values even when everyone around you is going in another direction. He lived in a time when society was moving further and further away from God, but this didn't negatively influence him. Nowadays, with so much social pressure, confusing media, and distorted values, you might be tempted to relax your principles to fit in better. Enoch's life encourages you to swim against the current when necessary. Your faith can be the light others need to see, even if at the moment it feels like you're alone. A very practical lesson we learn from Enoch is about priorities. He could have been concerned with accumulating wealth. After all, he lived 365 years, long enough to become a millionaire, building empires or becoming a celebrity of the day. But you chose to invest time and energy in what truly matters, your relationship with God. This doesn't mean you should be poor or have no professional ambitions, but that you need to keep communion with the divine as your number one priority. When this is in place, everything else falls into place naturally. It's like tuning the main string of a guitar first. The others become easier to adjust. The story of Enoch also encourages us to dream big spiritually. Many people settle for a basic faith, just enough to guarantee heaven. But Enoch shows us that it's possible to go much further. You can develop an intimacy with God so deep that it completely changes your perspective on life. You can experience peace amidst chaos, wisdom in complex situations, and clear purpose in confusing times. I'm not talking about fanaticism or thinking you're better than others, but about allowing God to transform your life in extraordinary ways. If it happened to Enoch, it can happen to you too. Finally, Enoch's life reminds us that our walk with God is not just about this life, but has eternal implications. He was literally taken into the divine presence because of the faith he developed here on earth. This should completely change how you view your days. Every choice you make, every moment you dedicate to communion with God, every act of obedience and love, all of it carries eternal weight. It's not just about being a better person today, but about building something that will last forever. It's like investing in an account that only grows and never loses value, no matter what happens in the global economy. So after learning this incredible story of Enoch, what will you do with this information? Will you keep it all stored away as just another interesting biblical curiosity? Or will you have the courage to apply the same principles that transformed his life? Enoch's journey wasn't a coincidence. It was the result of daily choices, well-defined priorities, and a faith he decided to cultivate every day. And guess what? You have exactly the same opportunities he did. Think about it. If Enoch managed to develop such a deep communion with God, living in a time without spiritual resources, without technology, without all the conveniences we have today, what's stopping you from doing the same? What are your excuses? Lack of time, lack of knowledge, or is it simply a lack of determination? The transformation you seek won't magically fall from the sky. It begins with a choice you make today, right now, at this very moment. Are you willing to prioritize your relationship with God the way Enoch did? Here's my challenge to you. For the next 30 days, try living like Enoch did. Start each morning by talking to God, including Him in your daily decisions, giving thanks for the little things and seeking divine wisdom before solving problems. You don't have to be perfect from the start. Remember, even Enoch had a growth process. But you do need to be consistent and sincere. Your faith will grow naturally, and you will begin to experience a peace and purpose you never imagined possible. Now answer me one question. What will be your first concrete step to begin this journey? Will it be waking up 15 minutes earlier to pray? Will it be thanking God 3 times a day? Or will it be studying the Bible every day before bed? Write your goal in the comments and commit to it. And also tell me, which part of Enoch's story impacted you the most? What caught your attention most in his walk with God? If this content awakened something within you, if it made you question your spiritual life and want to seek something deeper, then subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Every week we bring you transformative biblical stories like this one, practical lessons you can apply in real life, and insights that will strengthen your faith and bring you closer to God's purpose for your life. Don't miss this opportunity to grow spiritually and discover the incredible potential that lies within you.